Inspired talks of Swami Vivekananda. Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Sure Sachit Sukha Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. We are discussing the conversation that took place on July 19th, 1895. It is 1 month to date. That is, the talks had started on June 19th. So 1 month has passed. And I think it's our talk number 60, 62, something like that. So we are kind of keeping pace with Swamiji, imagining that we are spending 2 hours. Like if you listen to 2 hours a day, it would be 1 month. Those of you who have been listening to these talks, who have some idea about what Swamiji was, will surely feel what kind of power Swamiji must have been passing on to the listeners there. What an amazing thing. As we mentioned before, if you want to understand the higher aspect of religion, that includes every religion. And if you want to understand comparative religion, everything is there. This is modern day Gita. It's a scripture. It requires explanation. Fortunately, it doesn't require interpretation. Sorry. As in Gita, Gita requires a lot of interpretation. Of course, there have been great masters who have just explained Gita. That interpretation is also there. So fortunately, Inspired Talks doesn't require interpretation. I mean, maybe after 1,000 years, it may require some interpretation. Right now, it doesn't require. Now, continuing with what Swamiji told on July 19th, just a paragraph had been covered. Swamiji says the Sanskrit word for truth is isness, sat. Before we continue with this, just let me share something from my side. I'm not really a student of comparative religion, although I have written a very nice book, The World of Religions, appreciated by many, where I presented 8 religions the way they are. And when you look at those religions from the microscope and telescope or other lens of spirituality. However, as far as I am concerned, I'm not really a student of world religions. I'm a student of Hindu religion, no doubt. Definitely not a master. However, the little that I have juggled with, as far as world religions are concerned, the one thing that I have realized that every religion has 2 forms. One is for the common masses, another one is that which is practiced by the real spiritual seekers. As far as common masses are concerned, the common masses have practices which are kind of customs and rituals and general belief, etc. Now, that is also true religion. It's not that it's not. But the higher religion is generally confined to the real greats of any particular religion. For example, if you go to some of the highly rated Christian sacred books, they're really grand. They're just grand. Christian mystics, they're really great. Same with Buddhism. In Islam, there were the Sufi scholars and Sufi saints. They're also great. However, there is a major difference between Hindu religion and other religions. Major. It is that the higher aspects of religion have succeeded in percolating to the most common masses, which no other religion succeeded. For example, if you talk to a Christian, even, even though he might be a fully educated person, his idea of religion is, well, there is God and there is church, and I go to the church and I attend Sunday Mass and certain basic other things. These are the value system, etc. I grew up in a village. When I read Swamiji, I feel surprised that some of the statements that Swamiji has made, which are pretty profound, we knew since our childhood. And it was kind of, well, it is like this, it is this. I have chance to meet some foreigners, not many, of course, and they're very sincere people as far as religion is concerned. Like sincerity is in their gene. Western people, they're really sincere and very hardworking. But when it comes to understanding the very basics of religion, particularly Hindu religion, they are a miserable failure. What even a child knows to be the truth. You find that these Westerners, they lack. This is not to say that I'm criticizing or anything. I'm just stating certain facts. Due to this, what has happened that, for example, I've been to Narmada and I've been to Himalayas, and there have been many occasions when I saw that an ordinary tea vendor, he has been talking the highest philosophy of Vedanta. Once I was traveling by a general coach from Varanasi towards Dehradun, and there I met this moody fried rice seller. He was talking the highest of Vedanta philosophy. I never forgot him. And I made a character of him in Param as the peanut seller. What happens is when you can take the highest philosophy to the masses, a culture is created. This is the beauty. For example, in today's America and England, you find scientific temperament. They say that they want to be rational and they're in search of rationality. It only means that the scientific temperament has percolated down to the common masses. It's good. This is culture. In India, spirituality. The highest level of spirituality percolated down to the masses. If you really want to create a spiritual culture, you need to take it to the masses. So I was seeing some of these words that Swamiji has, some of the expressions Swamiji has given. They're pretty common in Hindu religion. Those who have even a very smattering knowledge of religion, they know that this is true. So Swami says the Sanskrit word for truth is isness. Sat. The word for truth is Satya or simply Sat. To give you an example, if you go to Hindi belt, anywhere, entire Hindi belt, starting Bihar down to Rajasthan, when someone dies and the body is carried on the shoulders, they keep chanting Ram Nam Satya Hai. The name of the Lord is truth. In Bengal, of course, we say Hari Bol, Bolo Hari, take the name of the Lord. There's a fundamental difference between take the name of the Lord Hari Bol and Ram Nam Satya Hai. The name of the Lord alone is the truth. Satya. Name and the named, they are one and the same. It says God alone is truth. Even when a person dies, there's a funeral procession. A dead body is being carried. What a Hindu chants? Ram Nam Satya Hai. What is Satya? Satya comes from the root Sat. Sat means that which exists. That whose existence cannot be questioned in present, past, or future. It cannot be limited either in time or in space. It is everywhere. Satya, truth. It is not only about speech, it is about existence. What is existence is God. What is God is truth. And what you speak must be truth. See, those of you who have some philosophical bent, let's try to feel how a simple word, a simple expression, Ram Nam Satya Hai, carries the highest philosophy of Vedanta. When I was a kid growing up in a village, I naturally had heard it many times. And I was curious what exactly it means, Ram Nam Satya. And the explanation that was given to me by the elders was more or less on the similar lines. But naturally, I won't remember what they said, but it was impressive. And I can tell you that it was something on these lines. Truth of speech is same as truth of existence, which is absolute existence, and that is God. From our present standpoint, this world appears to us as will and consciousness. Now, Swamiji is moving from there. See, when we talk about truth, when we talk about isness, which we have mentioned many times, some of my friends have started making fun of my pen example because there's nothing else that I can take. So here is this pen. Pen has two existences running simultaneously with it. The penness and the isness. Penness may get destroyed, isness can never get destroyed. This isness, this existence, this appears in this world as will and consciousness, that is thinking power. Why? Because there is only pure consciousness. This is only pure existence. When that pure existence is seen by the mind, because creation always means mind. Different systems of spirituality in India have expressed this variously as Kal, time. and some other things. However, there's one point where you can unite all of these systems in a mind. Surprisingly, no system has focused so much on mind. And personally, I like to focus too much on mind because that explains everything. Mind explains nature, mind explains time, mind explains multiplicity, mind explains everything. Mind, world of mind. Now, if you listen to our Raj Yoga talks, as they are in English, you will see that when you ultimately realize the truth, you know that you are pure consciousness. Who is the perceiver? Who is the knower? Consciousness. What is the known? Consciousness. That consciousness actually isness. The only thing you can say about it is it exists. We have delivered this talk on Vedanta. In Mandukya Karika playlist, you will find first talk. There we have explained the idea of isness. So when that isness is perceived by pure consciousness through the lens of mind, it now appears as will, consciousness, intelligence, ego, I-ness, everything. You know something very. I was recently reading a small book, Conversations with Jean-Paul Sartre. Those of you who are interested in philosophy would know that he is one of the pioneers of existentialism. I knew about Sartre superficially. Most things that I know is superficial because I don't like to go in depth. Now, conversation is something very interesting because there the person's personality really comes out. I was horrified. See, because he's talking about existentialism, he's talking about his own experiences, and he's talking about how his kind of intellect open to existentialism. And what was that? He found a similarity between the thoughts of Marx and the thoughts of Freud. And what is that? Clash. I was wondering that, see, this is the problem with the Western world, with all due respects to Western civilization. Starting from the time of Greek philosophers, that is, Aristotle and Plato. Plato went mostly for subjectivism, and Aristotle went mostly for objectivism. And now if you look at the entire Western philosophy, they're swinging between subjectivity and objectivity. One is trying to come up with arguments to downplay the arguments of others. This is a whole game. One of our very senior monks, he used to tell jokingly, the whole Western philosophy is a big footnote on Plato. He would always say that it's a big footnote on Plato. There is Plato's works and it's a big footnote, nothing else. Either you are proving him or you are disproving him. Now, because of this subjectivity objectivity problem, when Jesus came, the Lord, the Master, he was also seen with skewed eyes, squint eyes. And subjectivism, objectivism was applied on him too. And when came Rene Descartes with his famous Cartesian divide, graph x-axis, y-axis. It's a Cartesian divide. Mind and matter, God and matter, God and world, soul and body. They have a Cartesian divide. One is x-axis and there is y-axis. It suddenly hit me. I have not read it anywhere. I just realized, oh my God, everything in Western civilization, every thought in Western civilization runs on this simple principle of Cartesian divide. There is x-axis, there is y-axis, and this Cartesian divide unknowingly. Now, this is my understanding. I might be completely wrong, and I do apologize to thinkers and philosophers and teachers if I might be wrong. But I have a right. I have a right to my own way of understanding. Now, when Hegel came up with his thesis and antithesis and synthesis, he came up with these terms. There is x and there is an opposite force of x. And then there is a balance, which is synthesis. Although it appears amazing because Marxists took up from there, actually he's talking about there is a force and there is an inherent force within it which goes against it. So for every x, there is a minus x. They don't sum up into zero. They produce an y. That means there's a clash. What is clash? X-axis, y-axis. And Marxism, when Marx and Engels came up with their theories, it was class struggle. See, surprisingly, they are just naming the terms. When there is subjectivity, objectivity, actually there is thesis and antithesis clashing with each other. When Descartes comes with x-axis, y-axis, it's a clash. When Hegel talks about thesis, antithesis, it's a clash. And when Marx comes, it's class struggle. And then came Freud. And for him, everything was a clash. Conscious, unconscious, subconscious, whatever he meant, God knows. So in the Western world, entire Western process, you only find clash. And recently the book has become very famous, Clash of Civilizations. It's always clash. This thing clash everywhere. And where there is no clash, there also they see clash. That's the problem with looking at things with colored eyes. So Sartre, what he did was, he found this beauty in the works of Marx, and he found beauty in the works of Freud. What is Freud? If you look from the Hindu perspective, we have four goals: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Freud is talking about calm. Marx is talking about earth. We have known it all along, that these are the pursuits of people. People want only earth and calm. Earth is wealth, calm is enjoyment, fulfillment. Now, Western civilization goes by analysis and clash. Hindu civilization goes by synthesis and the desire to rise above. But why did Sartre came up with a new philosophy, existentialism, and that became very popular? Simply because he was living in the world of mind and he had no desire to go beyond this empire of mind. If he had desired to go beyond the empire of mind, maybe he would have talked like one of these Hindu thinkers. Unfortunately, we don't have many Hindu thinkers. That's a different thing. But maybe in the world of mind, in the empire of mind, this is what happens. You can come up with any kind of theory. Any kind of theory. Because isness is infinite. Consequently, consciousness is infinite. And when mind is looking, mind doesn't look, mind is only the lens. Is the consciousness within me that is looking at the universal consciousness with the lens of the mind. Infinite ideas will come up. It's not only about clash of subjectivism, objectivism. It is not only the clash of dialectic materialism. It's not about id and ego. It's not only about Sartre existentialism. There will be ideas and ideas and ideas. A Hindu tries to synthesize them so that he can go beyond mind. But the Western thinkers without knowing, even without their knowing. And naturally, you question may arise in your mind. Am I trying to show them light? Of course not. If they have a right to their understanding, I too have a right to my understanding. And if they have a right to publish their articles, I have a right to speak out things like that. They may have degrees, I don't have degrees, but I have a right to understanding, and I am not wrong, I know. They cannot explain why they are getting so many ideas. We know why they are getting so many ideas and why we don't get so many ideas. Because for us, whatever is there, we say it is temporary, make use of all this, jump beyond it, go beyond the empire of mind. For them, once they catch an idea, they will immediately find some other idea with which it is clashing. And then with that, they build a system of their own. I hope I am not boring with long explanations. But then it is very interesting, really very interesting. From our present standpoint, this world appears to us as will and consciousness. Why? Because this is why. And that is why Western science is struggling to explain consciousness without really realizing that when Swamiji is talking about consciousness, he means mind. Here, not always. From there, see, as I said, goal for a Hindu, goal for a Hindu is to go beyond mind. It's not about explaining all these theses and antitheses and class struggle and dialectic materialism. Swamiji comes. Next instant, in the next sentence, personal God is as much an entity for himself as we are for ourselves and no more. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the impact of this sentence? Personal God is an entity. Whenever you think of personal God, one of my brother monks, very learned person means, oh, he's very intelligent. And he jokes a lot. He's not much into this kind of learning, but he's very intelligent. And so naturally he can come up with wonderful interpretations, insights, and observation. He says, once he said that although in Ramakrishna mission we say that we are Advaitins, actually we are not Advaitins because no monk will ever dare to say that he is one with Sri Ramakrishna. No, we cannot. Emotionally, we don't dare. In ultimate analysis, no, there also we don't dare. Because you see, there is a reason that the moment you are talking about me, then Sri Ramakrishna becomes God, however, his personal God. He represents the absolute God, but he's personal God. And personal God becomes an entity in the same way that I am. In the famous statement, Aham Brahmasmi, when they say Aham Brahmasmi, it's not this me. It is all the trappings that is there on Aham that has to be first removed. Then all the trappings that is there on Brahman or personal God, that has to be removed. But once you can remove the trappings, once you can remove the upadhis, once you can remove all the coverings, where are you? You is lost. There's no I. No I left. So actually to say that Aham Brahmasmi is not really correct. Because whenever you say Aham Brahmasmi, it has to come with a rider. And that is why different systems of Indian philosophy attack this statement. Till you are in the world of mind, you do not have any right to say. So naturally, you add caveats, you add riders. What kind of philosophy is that where you are adding so many riders? When you say we stand for equality and what justice and in all those things, freedom. How can you have freedom and equality at the same time? Freedom implies inequality. Freedom and equality. Then they will put some riders, some conditions. Why are you making a fundamental statement that requires explanation? Fundamentally, if it's an axiomatic truth, it's an axiomatic truth. Don't put conditions to that. So God is an entity, and I am also an entity. He is not really superior. Swamiji is talking from highest standpoint of Vedanta. God can also be seen as a form, just as we are seen. Being a personal, being an entity can be seen. In fact, the Vedas made big, big issues out of it. It's only when that creation takes place, it's only when that God, who is ever present, everywhere present, who is only isness, about whom you can only say that is infinite. God being infinite, he cannot be matter. God being infinite, he cannot be personal. Only thing about God you can say is God is infinite. However, once this world comes, world of matter, world of mind, he now appears as God with form. But as we mentioned just now, isness is infinite, mind is a lens. Just think of you have a lens and you are looking at a wall with a lens. Earlier, this the books on Sherlock Holmes, Arthur Conan Doyle. So normally their cover used to be that there is Sherlock Holmes with a lens. All these spooky books you will find in many of these spooky books, you still have somebody looking through that lens. So you're looking at a wall or at a room with a lens. It will be never ending. Your experiences will be never ending. Your findings will be never ending. So can there be a personal God? And that whether you give a form to it, whether you give a name to it, whether you give a characteristics to it, no, it cannot be. God has to be infinite. Forms have to be infinite. Names have to be infinite. If a person has very rudimentary understanding of logic, rudimentary, I mean to say, you are looking at the infinite with a lens. What will be your experiences? Infinite. The infinite is now appearing as God. How many forms will be there? It's a simple argument, simple logic. Infinite. Hindus realized it long ago. And that's why I say, Ekam Sat Bahudha Vipra Bahudha Vadanti. Truth is one God. Sages call it by various names. It's a very such an obvious statement. Of course, it appears obvious to me because I have grown up in this system, but it may not appear so obvious to people who are not from this system. So God can also be seen as a form, just as we are seen. As men, we must have a God. As God, we need none. And this is, as I mentioned about my brother monk telling that we never dare say that I am one with Sri Ramakrishna. If you read Shankara's commentary on Gita, he repeatedly comes up with this sentence, with this statement: I am Krishna, the Supreme Brahman. Even in Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a narration based on Upanishads and the Vedas. Krishna is frolicking with the gopis, maids. And they have gone in that state where they have lost their individuality. And one gopi tells another, look, I am Krishna. Ordinary minds cannot understand all this. No, not possible. This is why Sri Ramakrishna constantly saw the Divine Mother ever present with him more real than any other thing around him. But in Samadhi, all went but the self. This is a very interesting statement. Those of you who know about Sri Ramakrishna, his sadhana, would know this. So Sri Ramakrishna was deep into sadhana, and then his sadhana was through Mother Kali. So now the infinite appeared to him as Mother Kali. Until last, Mother Kali was always with him. And so were all the popular gods and goddesses. Whenever he was in that mood of, say, Sri Ramachandra, he would see something related to Sri Rama or with about Shiva, whatever. The infinite God appeared to Sri Ramakrishna in infinite forms. So, one of our brother monks has written a book on something like this. Now, because publishers and scholars will not accept, he writes something like, it is said that. What do you mean by it is said that Sri Ramakrishna had this? So you have to completely throw all this, the books on Sri Ramakrishna and Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna and works of Swamiji as trash. What do you mean by this? It is a fact. Those who are not willing to accept it, don't go near them. Spirituality is not for everyone. What do you mean by it is believed, it is said? So difficult to be firm on your philosophical convictions. So Sri Ramakrishna constantly saw God with form, and yet whenever he went into samadhi, where that I-ness was effaced, there was no I-ness. There was only Atman, 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 nothing else. Atman is Brahman. When you worship, that same Atman now appears as the individual and the universal separated. Remove that I-ness. It's like there's a body of water, you put a stick. Now there's two parts. Remove the stick, one undivided whole. Personal God comes nearer and nearer until he melts away. And there is no more. If you read Christian mystics, particularly desert fathers, you'll find some similar experiences. Even if you read Eckhart, he appears like a Vedantin. So this kind of knowledge, this is not unique to Vedanta, mind it. Only difference is that in Hindu religion, these truths have percolated down to the masses with which we began. Whereas in other religions, it did not. Because people were not spiritually ready for all that. And now they can never be ready, because now with the materialism having its sway all over the world, it is so difficult to make people understand these fundamental things. There is no more personal God, no more I. All is merged in self. So if you want to remember, if you want to understand this, you only need to remember that there is a water body and you put a stick or a chain. Suddenly the whole thing appears as two. There is I-ness and mind. These are two practically connected, one and the same. So now that undivided consciousness appears as two. Mind it, it's not real division. It's an apparent division. And that's why you can have as many souls you want. You can go on. The division being imaginary, you can have any number of divisions. And then individual worships the universal. Remove that dividing stick, remove that sticky dividing chain. What remains is one undivided consciousness. And Swami says consciousness is a bondage. Here, Swamiji begins with consciousness, so naturally it has come as C, capital C. Swamiji here means the grasping power, mind's grasping power. That is why sometimes these things can be confusing. Consciousness is a bondage because whenever you are conscious of something, when we are conscious of something, mind comes into play. The moment mind comes into play, it's a bondage. Wherever there is mind, there is bondage. Mind is bondage. So when these Western scientists are working a lot on consciousness, they are actually trying to understand mind with mind, which can never be done because nothing can act on itself. Since nothing can act on itself, there is no way you can know mind with mind. However, that's a different topic here. Topic is consciousness is a bondage. The argument from design claims that intelligence precedes form. But if intelligence is the cause of anything, it itself is in its turn an effect. Uh, when Swami is talking about design, this design theory is essentially an Abrahamic theory, Abrahamic religion theory. However, in Nyaya system of philosophy in India, you find reflections of slightly different, but reflections of design theory. According to design theory, God, he wills. And he said, let there be light. And the universe was created. Intelligence precedes form. God thought. But if intelligence is the cause of anything, the moment A is the cause of B, A itself is bondage. Because no one creates unless he is in bondage. God can never create because he is never in bondage. Those of you who have been listening to Manduki Karika would remember, Apt Kamasya Kas Priya, one of my very favorite statements in Manduki Karika. One who is fulfilled. Why would he wish to create? Why? Why would he wish to create? The moment you have a desire to create, the moment you say that there's an intelligence that designs this universe, that means intelligence is under bondage, under compulsion. In existentialism, I just remember because I just was seeing and I read 8 or 10 pages, then I shut the book and kept it back. No more interested. Now these things where you are just vomiting out your mind, these things, they do not interest me. So he goes on talking about we are all products of the environment and yet we have some freedom. What rot, God. And people read these books and people adore these persons as philosophers simply because they are saying something which appears to you as real, and these people are, they make such big thing of out of Sartre. Existentialism. What rot. Where is freedom? You have two objects. Supposing you have two glasses of water kept here, and you want to drink. You say that the compulsion is that I have two classes, not three. And freedom is I can choose. God, what argument? The choice that you are making, that is under compulsion. Just that you don't know. Ask any neuroscientist, and he will say that whenever you make a choice, the decision is made long ago. It appears as freedom. It appears as freedom, but you're completely bound. Actually, till you are in the mind, you are completely bound. You are slave. You are all the time slave. I, dear listeners, when I had first read, I had read one of the novels by Sartre. I am forgetting the name. That was long ago. And I was pretty young. I could not understand anything. Fortunately, I could not. So now I was revisiting and I was shocked. See, this is the kind of things. It's pure vomit. And wherever they talk about two forces, wherever they're talking about clash, I become suspicious of them. William James was a great American philosopher. He was again suspicious of everything where there was oneness. It's a funny thing. When Swami Vivekananda was invited to Harvard University and where he gave talk and Swamiji was talking about oneness and William James, he was again William James and students asked him to ask some question, but William James refused because that was impolite. That was, it was impolite for the professors to ask questions to a speaker. So there are people who are inherently suspicious of oneness, and I am inherently suspicious of this clash thing. Whenever somebody see clash is something we see everywhere. You go to a vegetable vendor, he wants to take some extra money from you, and you want to save some extra money from him. At least in earlier days, when India was quite poor, it was a very common thing. But making a philosophy out of it, that is teaching things too far. So the moment we say that intelligence is the cause of something, we don't even realize that intelligence has been put under bondage. When you say that God creates, when you say that creation comes out of Brahman, unknowingly you are putting God under bondage. And to think that there is an intelligent design. Those of you who are interested in knowing more about it, you can listen to our talks on creation, theory of creation, in Mandukya Karika. There we have mentioned the different ideas of creation in different systems of philosophy. But if intelligence is the cause of anything, it itself is in its turn an effect. It is Maya. That way intelligence belongs to Maya. There's no more God. It's not pure consciousness. God creates us and we create God. And this is Maya. So God creates us. This itself is Maya. In turn, we create God. That is again Maya. Go and tell a devout Christian that you pray Jesus and this Jesus is manufactured by you and this is Maya. You will be hit hard. Tell the same thing to a Krishna devotee. You will be hit hard. I remember in one class, I was having a Bhagavatam class. And in Bhagavatam class, this idea of Maya came, and I was explaining this how personal God is belongs to Maya. And one lady, she got up and started shouting in the class that I made a mistake by getting admitted to this course to say that Sri Ramakrishna, who is my Easter, is Maya. So I didn't know what to say. If Sri Ramakrishna is your Easter, he's my Easter too. I'm not denigrating Sri Ramakrishna, I'm not denigrating Jesus. The idea is Maya has I. Maya also has God. You need very fine understanding, very fine intellect to understand this. Because you are taking help of the mind to crush down mind. Something difficult. The circle is unbroken. Mind creates body, and body creates mind. The egg brings the chicken, the chicken the egg, the tree the seed. The seed is unbroken chain. Just like that, God creates us, and I create God. In the Vedas, it's very surprising. Such an ancient work, maybe 8,000, 10,000 years old, and there we come across lots of examples of reverse creation, where God creates the universe and then the universe creates God. So the world is neither entirely differentiated nor yet entirely homogeneous. Man is free and must rise above both sides. Man is free, not as mind, not as intelligence, but as Atman. The idea that God resides and God is never ever us, God resides inside us. He doesn't interfere, He will never interfere. He's just a witness to everything. Because you want to enjoy the world. The day you say, I don't want to enjoy the world, then God will say, fine, I take over. Both are right in their place, but to reach truth, isness, we must transcend all that we now know of existence, will, consciousness, doing, going, knowing. The general idea that we have about existence, that must go away. Whether as noun or as verb or as adjective, it has to go away. Then only pure isness comes. That is when samadhi takes place, and that is when you become truly what you are. There is no simpler method. To think that when you talk of willpower, will, it is bondage. Swamiji himself talking about your will can move mountains. Where there is a will, there is a way. And yet, just imagine, will itself is a bondage. Can you imagine the level at which we are talking? Aeroplane, whatever height it may take, it is bound by the laws of gravitation. It is within the Earth's gravity. The rocket, when it acquires escape velocity, it goes beyond. As an aeroplane, you are always bound. This aeroplane is like the mind. Sorry, so it's like higher ideas. And even those higher ideas like will and doing and all those things, they're all in bondage. Everything is in bondage. You need to transcend the forces, the force of gravity. There is no real individuality of the jiva, separate soul. Eventually, it, as a compound, will go to pieces. The Atman, pure consciousness, when it identifies itself with mind and body and senses, it kind of becomes a compound. Although it's an imagined thing, however, it's a compound. So jiva has to die. What is mukti? What is freedom? What is moksha? Death of you. You as jiva. When the body dies, jiva takes up a new body. Enjoyment and suffering continues. If you want freedom, if you want true freedom, consciousness associated with jiva has to die, has to break down. Otherwise, it will continue, and that is mukti. If someone asks you what is mukti, death of jiva. And I know one of those popular shlokas is jiva brahmaiva na paraha. Jiva and Brahma, they are one and the same. Only that which is beyond further analysis, simple. And that alone is truth, freedom, immortality, bliss. Where all analysis fails, where there is no consciousness, no will, no mentality, nothing, no more analysis. And that's why I'm suspicious of every analysis. I'm suspicious of every rationality, so-called scientific approach. I'm suspicious of. No, I don't mean to say that I don't have a scientific temperament. When you're trying to push too much, you're getting more and more into the web of the mind. Mind is bondage, consciousness is bondage, understanding is bondage. You are more and more into that bondage. You need to get out of this mess and reach the simple, where not even the complexity of I-ness exists. That is truth, that is freedom, immortality, bliss. All struggles for the preservation of this elusive individuality are really vices. What is virtue? What is vice? Now we come to the main point. When you are trying to preserve this individuality, if I try to preserve this Samarpananda, the individuality, this is vice. And all struggles to lose this individuality are virtues. Dharma, adharma. If you ask any follower of Abrahamic religions, or even Parsi Zoroastrians, they have very clear demarcation between virtue and vice. Command of God is virtue. Disobeying that command is vice. Any Muslim will tell you that. Quran says like this. So, however, Swamiji says that all struggles for the preservation of this elusive, individually elusive. Those of you who have been listening to our talks would remember that Hindus are the only race who say that their most sacred book, the Vedas, they are a bondage. Gita famously says, the Vedas are about preserving your individuality. Traigunya Visya Veda. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. These are the three qualities that bind us. And the Vedas are all about three gunas. You are trying to preserve your individuality. If you read the Vedas, you'll find continuously talking about going to the heaven, having wealth, and having protection, etc. You're trying to preserve individuality. In whatever form you are trying to preserve your individuality, that is vice. And when you're trying to lose your individuality, that alone is virtue. What is right, what is wrong? When you're trying to break down your individuality, that is when you are more and more inclusive. That's virtue. When you are being more and more exclusive, that's vice. So now there is a very interesting joke about a person who was overweight, fatty. So he made a friend after some long time. Friend asked, "Are you doing something for this?" The overweight person says, "Everything for it, nothing against it." We normally do everything to preserve our individuality. We never struggle to lose our individuality, to destroy this individuality. When you go all out to destroy this individuality, that is virtue, that is dharma, that is punya. When you make gifts, suppose you go to a tirtha and you make pilgrimage and you make donations, you won't even remember whom you gave. But when on Holi and Diwali you make a gift wrap and take it, or on birthdays you take it to your friends, you make a very clear idea in your head. I have given such gifts and I expect return gifts. So you have gifts, return gifts, gifts, return. It's give and take. It doesn't create any punya in you. Rather, it creates bondage. However, when you go to a pilgrimage and you make donations, you don't even know to whom you, because you may not go to that place ever again. There you're losing your individuality. You don't have any expectation. Some kind of punya is created because preservation of individuality is not carried further. Oh well, we will continue with this discussion uh, from this point next time. Thank you so much. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tats. Shri Ram Krishna Arpanam.